To deal with item 9, page 331, no, sorry, page 75 to 92. And if you would just bring forward item 37, page 331. Teresa, can you, or Patrick, somebody can deal with the mics? Thank you. Okay, David, that's better. I can hear it already. Okay, David, could you please just give us a brief overview of what's in your report?
Yes, Chair. We have a project that's been proposed to export coal from the states, from Wyoming mines, through rail connections to the Fraser Surrey docks, and then loading on barges being taken up the coast to a existing mine on Texada Island, where it'll be offloaded, stored, and then eventually loaded onto ocean-going vessels that will be taken over to Asia for as power generation or for assisting in steel production. The project is being reviewed by two different agencies. The Fraser Surrey Docks end is being overseen by Metro Vancouver, and the Texada Island end is being overseen by the Ministry of Mines, Energy and Mines. There doesn't seem to be a coordinated approach to looking at the project as a whole, and that's created some concerns in terms of who's actually looking at impacts on the communities along the travel routes, especially between the two terminals. There is evidence that says that coal dust can be and is a health risk, but it's unknown exactly what the level of risk will be from this. So there are a few recommendations that we've made based on concerns also raised by our MLA, member of legislature, Nicholas Simons. So we're asking for a health and environmental impact study to be done. We don't need to refer to Sabine Channel. I mistakenly assumed that was the entire travel route, but that's just a small portion of it towards the end. Asking that the barges be covered, and there's no intention to do that right now. And that a full environmental assessment be conducted to look at some specific aspects such as health, navigational risk, environmental management, spill response, and air quality management. And that we liaise with some agencies and groups, that First Nations along the way, to make them aware of what we're doing or requesting.
So were you suggesting that in number 2A that there be a period after barge traffic and delete the words "in the Sabine Channel"?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
Okay. And in the report, there was mention of a meeting between the local medical health officer and the Minister of Energy and Mines. Do you have anything to report on that?
I had a bit of an email and phone tag conversation with Paul Mardiquet, who's the health officer on the coast, who's dealing with this. And he has confirmed that a health assessment will be done for the project, but I was a bit unclear the scope of that, and I've not been able to get back in touch with them to find out what the scope of that project is. So I'll try to find out before the board meeting next week when this will be considered.
Thank you. Director Johnson.
Yes, I have a concern here, and I'm not sure how best to do it, but it was triggered by the windrows chart that we had on another issue recently, and it has just struck me as the wind direction is particularly significant to the Sunshine Coast for the transportation of this coal, and that this coastline could likely bear the brunt of the coal dust that's being blown. It's going to be blown our direction. And I'm wondering if you could recommend the best way to make sure that gets included in the assessment. This is of concern, I think, to a lot of people.
So would you suggest that in the environmental management plan or assessment that the impact of wind direction or
yes,
local wind direction be looked at?
Yeah, local wind, yeah.
Okay, I have Director Turnbull and then Director Knorr.
Yeah, I guess I'm really having a hard time understanding why we are shipping the U.S. dirty coal out of Canada. From my point of view, that I don't understand what benefit the communities, particularly along the way, are going to be receiving from doing this in any way. I do understand the benefit to Lafarge. I do understand the benefit to Burlington Northern. And what I'm wondering is if the reason this is coming to Canada is because the U.S. is not allowing this. So that would be my question, and wondering why Canada can't have, higher standards, in my view, for this type of thing. I see nothing but a health detriment to us all. So from my point of view, I don't even know why we've even started this project or even thinking about it.
So how would you want
I
that
don't
question
know.
to be addressed?
I guess what I'm, we're wondering about an environmental assessment and the health benefits. So from my point of view, I guess the question would be, what benefits would the community along the way enjoy from this project that would be higher than the detriment to their health? That's not quite worded correctly, but.
Well, why don't you think about that
Yeah.
while we have the rest of the
Yeah.
discussion, and maybe you'll
Okay.
come up with some addition to this. Director Noor.
Yes, Chief Eshchuk said he couldn't make the meeting this morning. He wanted me to pass something on to the board and anyone that was here at the meeting. They're concerned, they would like to have the environmental assessment complete. They would also like to do a joint press release with the SCRD, whatever we decide. And their concern is fishing rights and the dust spreading across Sailor Sea, Georgia Straits, and fear that it might cause something to their fishing. And basically, they have Section 35, I think he told me, rights that they're going to bring forward to the provincial government to discuss this, and also the federal government on fisheries. So whatever we decide, they're willing to go along with us because they support what we've already said.
Okay, so I'm hearing two additions that maybe fit, correct me if I'm wrong, under 2C3, under environmental management plan, or it might be under the overriding paragraph environmental assessment, including the local wind patterns and the dust and impact on fish. So we're adding those two items. I have Director Lewis and then Director Moreau.
Thank you. I would really like to take a strong standing against this. I see only environmental jeopardy for the Sunshine Code, and so I would like to be strongly against the action proposed here. And one of my high school teachers said the worst thing you could do with coal is burn it, and that has stuck with me for a long time. That was a long time ago. So, at any rate, I just like this board to take a strong stance against this action.
Director Moreau.
Yeah, I think that the gap in the environmental assessment is obvious in this. It's the two ends have been addressed. I like most of the recommendation and how it's structured. I'm always a little reluctant in the too prescriptive an approach to some of the comments in it. I think that we want to make sure that they are addressed by the professionals giving us the reports. So with that in mind, the B, barges should be covered to prevent coal dust escaping. I think that that's an idea, but I think that has to be part of the air quality management plan, because if someone throws a small tarp and says, we've satisfied this kind of recommendation, we've thrown a tarp over it, and it really doesn't prove to be effective, I think we need, not for us to identify that, the air quality management plan needs to specifically prevent coal dust from escaping during transport, and a method has to be defined for that. That's really, I think we want to add to the environmental management plan, again, for coal dust and the escaping. So I just like to remove the prescriptiveness of the recommendation and say these have to be addressed, and addressed to absolutely minimize or have no impact, especially during transport. One shouldn't expect to have impact during transport, so I think that's what I would like the recommendation changed slightly.
Director Noor?
Yeah, I don't disagree with the board saying that they're dead against this. That's what they feel. But my concern always is that we never really have the final result. And I want to make sure that if there is a final result, which we have nothing to do with, that we've covered all bases. And that's why the environmental assessment is really extremely important to me, that we do it thoroughly. What it will prove is one side or the other, hopefully, if they do it properly. But as Director Morrow has said, make sure you're asking for what you want, because they can easily skip over certain sections and not be adequate in what we're really looking for.
Okay, so I'm going to try and encapsulate what I've heard here. So one concern that I've heard about is the whole issue of using Canada as a route to ship U.S. coal through. And would you want that to be included in number 2A, which is where we're talking about our general concerns? The SCRD board is concerned about the shipping of U.S. coal through Canada, about the potential health and environmental impacts of coal dust from barge traffic. Does that work for people? Just number one. That was the concern that Director Turnbull raised. Director Lewis? Okay. Then I'm hearing a suggestion to delete 2B, but to include that comment later, so that C becomes B, that a full environmental assessment, including consideration of local wind patterns in the Georgia Strait and impact of coal dust on fish, et cetera, and that then you're adding under the environmental management plan and the air quality management plan to ensure that the prevention of escape of coal dust during transport, and not telling them how that should be accomplished, but to include it. Does that cover, I think that covers the concerns that I've heard, Director Moreau?
Yeah, I just one minor, maybe a minor wording change, but in C includes consideration of, but not, this is not the comprehensive list. I just want to make sure that this is not what we limit the environmental assessment to, including but not limited to.
Okay, so that it includes but is not limited to the following at the end of item C. Director Noor and then Turnbull?
Yes, I'm having a meeting the other day with our federal minister. He did point out that he would like to be involved in any issues that we have. I know his name from our comments we talked to. And of course, we're dealing with fisheries.
So let's add MP John Weston to our list of copies. Now, I did read in the report that there was a request for comments by November 22nd. Is that your understanding, David?
That's my understanding for part of the project, but there also seems to be that's from the Ministry of Mines representative I spoke to, but there does seem to be a little bit of scope for the Fraser Surrey docks end. So I guess the sooner we get the comments out, the better, and then we can follow it up with the board resolution next week. So I could do a staff level comment incorporating these changes.
Is that okay? So that and that staff be instructed to forward these comments immediately. And how do you want to word the preparation of a joint press release between the Sunshine Coast Regional District and the Sechelt Indian Band on this subject?
I think first off we have to make a motion, whatever the motion is, and then make sure that the First Nations, Sechelt Nation, agree with it, and then send it out.
Okay, so what we could do at the end of this recommendation is that these comments be discussed with the Seashelt Nation with the idea of producing a joint press release. Director Turnbull?
I'm not, I need the wording again of the one that you changed at the top. I had another one, and I'm not sure if it's covered.
Okay, so can you read what we've got, please, Tracy?
Okay, that the Planning and Development Committee recommended that the staff report dated November 7th, 2013, titled Coal Shipments to Texada Island be received, and that the SCRD board forward the following comments to the Minister of Environment, Port, Metro Vancouver, and the Ministry of Energy and Mines. A, the SCRD board is concerned about the shipping of U.S. coal through Canada and the potential health and environmental impacts of coal dust from barge traffic. B, that a full environmental assessment be conducted to allow for comprehensive public input from people along the entire route, and that it includes, but is not limited to, the consideration of the following. 1, health impact assessment that includes consideration of coal dust transfer during the barge transport. 2, navigational risk assessment. 3, environmental management plan addressing the impact of local wind direction be considered and the impact on fish. 4, the spill response plan. And 5, air quality management plan addressing the barges be covered to prevent coal dust escaping during transport. Do you want to
I don't think we wanted to necessarily say we wanted to ensure that there be no coal dust emissions during transport.
Okay, so wording.
And
for
the
that.
environmental management plan isn't limited to
And not
the
limited.
wind and the fish. Those should be included. Okay, carry on.
Okay, 3, the comments be copied to the Squamish Nation, Seashelt Nation, Powell River Regional District, Nicholas Simons, MLA Powell River Sunshine Coast, MP John Weston, and that staff be authorized to act upon this immediately, and that comments be discussed with the Seashelt Nation with the potential of a joint press release between the Seashelt Nation and the SCRD.
Director Lewis?
I think Director Turnbull was before me.
Okay.
Yeah, just to finish my comment, I needed to hear what was in there. So what I would also ask for is another bullet under 2, and I don't care where it is, but that a complete economic impact study, including public consultation, be conducted to ascertain the effect on the communities along the way.
Okay, so that would be a new C, I guess. Okay. Everybody good with that? Director Hockley?
In the comments copied to, I'm assuming the town of Gibsons and the district of Seashelt will be added to those.
Okay, can you add those two as well?
Thank you.
Okay, now I know there are a lot of people here. I don't want to prolong the conversation. Oh, I'm sorry, Director Lewis, go ahead.
Thank you. Also, a concern that I have is, are they going to be pulling these barges over the area of the glass sponge reefs that we have out in Salish Sea and Georgia Strait, and the effect that the coal dust might have on that environmental feature?
So do you want to add to impact of coal dust on fish and such ecosystems as the glass sponge reef?
Perfect.
Okay, I'm going to ask the directors if you're willing to hear from a couple of people in the audience have their hands up. Is that all right? We're going to just do 2, because I see 2. Bill, go ahead.
Just following up what Lauren said, make sure that this environmental assessment deals with, other than just fish, the glass sponge. You got to think that it's not coal dust. It's these heavy metals that are in the coal dust. That's selenium, arsenic, and it kind of goes on. And it's all cumulative. So we just have to be aware of this.
Yeah, I think the last comment was such as glass sponge reefs, so I think it addresses that. Gentleman at the back?
Hi, my name's Douglas. Like the slamming band also being notified, I think it's really close to their territory, so that would be.
Is that good?
And
Okay.
also, I'm thinking about like, if there's an emergency, if there should be some kind of, like, preparation if the barge was to wash up on shore or something, some type of plan would be
I
developed.
think that's the spill response plan is addressed there. Yeah.
And also, I'm thinking about them, just, if it's covered and the dust comes out and everything, but the moral sort of dilemma of sending coal somewhere else to be burned, so I don't know how that would be addressed. And one final thing would be, if is allowed, because it is happening already, that coal is being shipped there, I believe, that if it was allowed, that a large, like, tax or amount of money be paid to further getting away from burning coal, getting away to maybe help that gentleman with the tidal project or something.
Thank you. Okay, Director Turnbull?
I was just thinking of another CC that we may want to have, and that's to UBCM.
Okay. Do you want to send it to UBCM? So we've got the slam and band and UBCM. Anything else? You know what? I think we've covered it. I said I'd hear from 2 people. I'm sorry I can't hear from everybody. We have a very fat agenda, so we're going to have to wrap this one up. Who is making the motion?
I'll make the motion. But just to those people in the audience, you have your right to send in your information also. So if you want to send letters to the board, please do, and we'll see if we can follow up on them. So you have that opportunity also.
And I would also call attention to this letter that we've brought up, which is a meeting on Saturday, 2:00 at the Seashell Indian Band Hall, and there'll be some presenters and discussion further, so more information. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much for your interest.